Allah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammadin kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. اللهم ترحم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما ترحمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم تحنن على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما تحننت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم يا رب وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما سلمت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. So my dear brothers and sisters, alhamdulillah, we are now reached the part of the little series of talks on the outer and inner aspects of the prayer, which will deal with the form of the prayer. I just had felt that there was some part missing, but I've forgotten it again. There was something that I had left out when it came to the preparation of prayer. Oh yes, of course. The adhan. I should have, of course, included the adhan also in the preparation of prayer, because that's part of it. It is not mentioned in this particular narration on which I'm basing this little series of talks, but nevertheless, it is part of the. You can say it is included in the yusalli hinna liwaqtihinna, that you perform those prayers to their particular time. So in the concept of the timings of the prayer also comes the call to prayer. Have you heard the story of how it came to be? The call to prayer?
Please say.
Some of you have, maybe. Okay. Yeah. It is narrated that when the community in Medina grew larger and it was no longer feasible to personally call everybody for the prayer, the Prophet, peace be upon him, gathered some of his, or many of his Sahaba, his companions, for a what do you call it now? Consultation. How can we gather the Muslims, our friends, for prayer? So someone suggested to use a bell, like the Christians were doing. Someone suggested going up on the hill and shouting like they would do in the times of the pre-Islamic times, the times of Jahiliyyah, when they wanted to call everybody. They had a certain method for that. And they had different ideas, but they didn't reach to any conclusion. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, he asked everybody to sleep on it till the next day. So when they gathered the next day, then one not particularly well-known companion of the Prophet, whose name I've now forgotten, he came and he told the Prophet, I had a dream. I saw two angels walking past with a bell. So I asked them, can you lend me that bell? They said, of course. But what do you want it for? So he said, I wanted to call the Muslims for prayer. So they said, absolutely, you can have it, but shall we not tell you something better? And then they taught him the words of the adhan, of the call to prayer. So the Prophet liked the idea, and he said, yeah, this is what we should do. And so he gave Bilal the task of calling the Muslims for prayer. Bilal, who, for some particular qualities that he had, and because he had a beautiful, presumably, and a loud voice, so he asked him call the Muslims to prayer. And that's how the prayer call came about. I like this through a dream. I think this was beautiful. And not the Prophet himself dreaming, and no particularly famous person. It's just an ordinary person's dream was the basis of the call to prayer. For 1,400 years, it is still called in the same way. Isn't that fantastic? I think it's just wonderful. Anyway, so that is of course part of it, to call the call to prayer if you are able to. It is not a necessary requirement of the prayer, but it is ideally good to do it even if you're praying on your own. And if you hear the call to prayer, it's good to answer it, to reply to it. And then there is a dua at the end of the call to prayer, of course, which some of us know, which we have done together now, these few prayers, calls we have heard. That, O Allah, you who are the Lord of this perfect calling. And then it asks to give Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam the wasila and the fadila, the virtuous position and this particular honor on the Day of Judgment, which is called the wasila. There are various different translations for that. Maybe there is just a position in paradise who is not fitting for anyone but the Prophet ﷺ himself, and he has asked us or he hopes to get that position. He asks us to pray that he will get it. Ad-darajat al-rafi'a, the honorable and the high position. According to some, the darajat al-rafi'a is the position of being the intercessor, the shafi' of the ummah on the Day of Judgment. وَذُقْنَا شَهَادَتَهُ, and give us shafa'atahu, and give us the shafa' of the Prophet. So we ask for Allah to give the station of being the shafi', the person who will will intercede for the whole of creation, for the reckoning to start on the Day of Judgment, and then also to include us in his shafa' as well, that the Prophet will speak on our behalf as well on the Day of Judgment. But one interesting part in this is we say that, oh Allah, you are the master of this perfect call. So the adhan is a perfect call. I think I mentioned this before as well, because it includes this stating the greatness of Allah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than anything we can conceive. Allah is so much greater than the whole of this creation and the four elements, or whatever you want to imply by this 4 times repeating Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than our hopes and our fears, than our aspirations and our intentions, than everything. And then the caller repeats the proclamation of faith, or the shahada, the witness, and then calling to prayer and calling to success. And this is the perfect call, the perfect da'wah. I used to sometimes say that the usul of da'wah are all to be found in the call to prayer. And I know this by experience as well, because that is the moment when I came into Islam. It was basically after the call to prayer and the prayer. When Ahmed Zaytouni, may Allah bless his soul, he just stood up in my little hut, my little cottage, and he called this call to prayer, and then he started saying the prayer in front of me, and he was saying his salat in front of me, and the transformation was happening inside me. That within an instant I was aware that there is only one God, from not having even had the idea of the existence of God before. And this is the salat. It's the salat. It's this wonderful thing, this prayer. So something he must have been doing right. Now, the form of the prayer includes the formalities, the arkan of the prayer, the constituent parts of the prayer. There may be differences in different schools, so I will not go in on the differences, and I will not say this as a manner of this is how you should do it, this is how it has to be, but this is an example or an idea to sort of give us a concept. I will base it on what I have learned in the Hanafi madhab. So they say that there are 13 fara'id of the salat, 13 necessities of the salat. 6 who are outside of the prayer, and 6 who are part of the prayer, which also then become its constituent part, the arkan of the prayer, and 1 which is kind of in between. So the 6 which are the constituent part of the prayer is the standing up. It is the recitation of the Quran. It is the bowing. It is the 2 sajdas. And it is to sit at the end of the prayer for at least as long as it takes to say the tashahhud. At-tahiyyatu lillahi, etc. The at-tahiyyat. So what was it? The standing, the qira'ah, the bowing, what do you say? The 2 sujood, the sitting. Yeah, the ruku, the bowing. I'm just trying to, I feel that I'm missing one, that's why I'm repeating them. It's just,
Allahu Akbar in the
I think the takbir tahrima, yes. I'm just thinking whether that is part of it. Yeah, no, you're right. Takbir tahrima, of course, in the beginning, Allahu Akbar. I was just unsure whether that was one of the arkan or one of the constituent parts. I think it is, you're right, it's one of the kinds of takbir in the beginning, and then to stand up, and then to recite the Quran, and then to bow, and then to prostrate twice, and then to sit in the end of the prayer for at least as long as it takes to say at-tahiyyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibatu assalamu alayka ayyuha an-nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi as-salihin ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. That amount of time, whether you say it or not. Saying it is wajib, but we're talking about the fara'id or the arkan of the salat. And the 6 before is, and now I'm not sure I got them in the right order again, but it is the time of prayer, to be the time. It is the to face the Qibla. It is to cover your body. It is to purify your the wudu, the tahara, and also the purity of the place where you are. And then I'm still feel I'm missing one,
Salams.
Sorry?
The salam.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking in the end. That's what I'm thinking, that I was wrong. The tahrima is counted as the in-between one. That's what I was saying. 6. With the salam it will be 6. It's not specifically the salam, it is ending the prayer by your action. The word salam is not considered to be fard or compulsory, but to end with your action. And then to say to end with salam, it is wajib. They do this, the Hanafis, they like to specify things. So they make a difference between wajib and fard, and so they have very, very, almost, I don't know what you call it. It's very sort of organized in a way that this is it, this is this, it's this. So you can count so many wajibs, but there's so many different numbers. Over 50 usually they count anyway. So I'm not going to even try to remember all of them. But you're right. So it is the saying of the salam, or at least the ending of the prayer by your own action at the end, is also one, and that means that the 6 outside is the time and the facing the Qibla, and to be covering the part of bodies which are compulsory to be covered in prayer, and then it is to have wudu, or to be free from the ritual impurity, and then it is for the place also to be pure. I think it's counted separately, and also then it is to have the intention for the prayer. And then the tahrima is like in between the two kind of thing, Yeah, in the middle, something like this. But what I'm going to talk about really, because we have talked about the preparation for prayer, I think that is all these things before. The wudu, the obviously ablution is the important one, which was mentioned in this narration. And the other one, facing the Qibla, and that being the time of the prayer. The time of the prayer was also mentioned here. But the other one, like the facing of the Qibla and the covering of the body. So they are implied in all of this as well. But then it's atamma ruku'ahunna. The Prophet said you should complete the bowing of the prayers. And as I mentioned, we can understand the bowing here to represent the whole of the physical, the outer act, the form of the prayer. So the ruku' here is not only ruku', but it is also including the takbir, tahrima, and the qiyam, and the qira'ah, and the ruku', and the sujood, and the qa'dah, and the ending of the prayer of the salam, and everything else. Beginning then with the intention of prayer. إنما الأعمال بالنيات. But you could debate, of course, whether you would include the intention in the form of the prayer or the meaning of the prayer. But here I think because it's one of the formal requirements, so it's still included in the form. And to have basically what it is, you know what you're doing. I think there are many misconceptions again about what the niyyah consists of and what you have to do and what you do not have to do and which language it has to be. And really, again, with the possibility of some differences between the different schools, النية عقد القلب على الفعل. Niyyah, intention, means that your heart is tied to the action. عقد القلب على الفعل. The heart is tied to the action, meaning that you know in your heart what you're about to do. And that you should have this intention when you start the prayer. I know the Shafi'is are even more particular with the niyyah. So you have to have it exactly at the moment when you say the takbir, and you say the takbir and you realize, oh no, didn't have the niyyah just at that particular split second. So you have to sort of redo it. And sometimes if you are if you have an issue with sort of insecurity, you might be sort of hardly ever been able to start the prayer because you keep on restarting it. And of course, if you find yourself in that situation, you should not even bother about it. You should just start it and that's it. I had it. It would be very rare that you will start the prayer without having the intention. I can tell you. I mean, it's like you will not do it, basically. It will not happen. The intention may not be so present or specified, but I think technically it's fine. But of course, it's good to have intention. And to have the right intention, of course, if there's a compulsory prayer, which prayer are you praying, If you're praying Dhuhr or Asr or whatever it is. If you're praying behind an imam, they say you should also have the intention of following the imam. Again, I think most of these things are given. I suppose this situation would be that if there is a group praying here and you sort of start your prayer on your own, not realizing that they're praying together, and then you sort of, I might as well become part of that. Then you have to really restart your prayer. So it's small details, really. I don't think they're particularly important. But of course, other part of the intention is, which is more to do with the meaning of the prayer, that why are you praying in the first place? To whom are you directing this prayer? But I will take that on the meaning of the prayer. To stand up, well, it's not so particular, or the takbir, the Allahu Akbar. It's again, you raise your hands to somewhere to the ears or to the shoulders, and you hold your sort of hands towards the Qibla. And then I've made different ideas how to hold your hands. I've been taught to hold them in a natural position, not very tight, not like this, but just as they are. And then you start the prayer, and then you put your hands, and that's an interesting thing, of course, where you put your hands in the prayer, because there are so many different things of that. And I really love the thing that Sister Yakuta was telling us about The reason, because I had never heard that before, the reason why you put your hand exactly on that place. And this, I mean, this is exactly where I've always had my hand when I do the prayers, because that's how I learned that you hold your hands. But I've never really sort of understood the hikmah or the wisdom behind that, you know, what the sort of particular effect that has. But I can certainly, you know, it resonates with me 100%. But there are different ways of holding them, so I will not go into that. Again, that's part of the matter of fiqh. And then we have the standing. And you stand in prayer. And Allah says in the Quran, وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. That you should stand for Allah with reverence. You know, with reverence. You should be calm and collected, and with respect and reverence for the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are now standing in front of the Lord of the universe. You know, you don't have to tremble. You should be calm, but you still should have reverence, the sort of, you know, that the respect and the alvar, whatever it's called. What do you call it? The seriousness, or the better word for it. Huh? You know, you don't have to have a frown on your face when you stand. It's not the idea. You can have a smile on your face, that's fine. But you should be like respectful, calm, and you know, ideally maybe, you know, dressed appropriately. All of these things, you know, it's like part of the prayer. You have different states of mind. Sometimes maybe it will be closer to your state, or the required, or the sort of desired state of the prayer, that you pray as you are, and you are sort of almost purposely denying the importance of your outer appearance. But on other times, it may be the opposite, that you should sort of wear your best clothes, you know, as if you would. What would you do if you go to stand in front of an important person? Well, now Allah is more important than any important person. Of course, we know this. So, again, but sometimes it's more like, well, you know, one Sahabi was praying with his, you know, with his shirt unbuttoned, you know. I can't remember now what reason he gave, but it was anyway accepted. It's like, you know, it's fine. You can do that as well, because that's one state. Or if you feel you have to put right up to the top button because you want to have reference for the occasion, that's fine as well. So I think it's really, the importance is not exactly how sort of particularly you dress, but you know what you are doing, and you do whatever you do it sort of consciously, and you do it with this, yeah, I'm standing in front of Allah, whatever that means. That means with your torn clothes, with your patches and everything, or does that mean with your best Sunday suit, Friday suit? Then that will be it, you know, but with reverence, qanitin. And then, of course, the recitation of the Quran is also part of the arkan of the prayer, and that you read the Quran with tartil, you know, one verse at a time. And ideally, you take a breath between every verse. When you stop in the Quran, there's a whole science of waqf when you read the Quran. Of course, you should make an effort to acquire a good reading of the Quran. It will always be personal, it will always be different for everybody, but you should again do your best. So we should all try to perfect our pronunciation as to our ability and situation and position, and make an effort. The effort is required, the result is in the hands of Allah. The effort is what is required. And also have a knowledge of the stops. You know, the waqf, because that is to do with the breathing, and that is very, very central when it comes to bringing the meaning into the prayer and making the prayer into a meditation, real, you know, meditation. So when you read one verse of the Quran, if you stop, you don't have to stop between each verse. You can read them all together, but then that's a rule. So there's a rule for joining the verses, and there's a rule for stopping after each verse. But if you stop, you have to breathe. Unless it's a stop without breathing, which are very few in the whole of the Quran. There are only a limited number of those stops, less than 10. But if there is a full stop, then you breathe. So you know, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Nicely, calmly, collectively. If you're in a hurry, that's fine. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. But when you stop, you breathe. And you carry on like this. You read the Surah Fatiha and you add a surah. You go into the bowing, to the ruku'. Again, this is something I was thinking we maybe should pair up here and look at the postures. Not that we will teach each other what is the right posture, but to be aware of maybe we are not doing what we think we're doing. So, to keep the... I don't know, again, maybe there is a difference in different madhahib. Maybe according to some there is a difference between the prayer of a man and the prayer of a woman. Be that as it may, but as I have learned, for the way I've learned prayer, the idea, if you could, you should have your back completely horizontal like a table. Not bent at all, just completely folded and being flat, but being horizontal. It's almost a physical impossibility, but some people manage to do it. And I've seen some people, it's a beautiful, beautiful prayer you would not really expect. But I'm sure my back is not really out. So again, if you have someone to watch, and just that, maybe that only thing, is my back level or not? When I think it is, if I want it to be, if I think it should be. And also, then when you stand up, and you keep your hands on your knees, you grip your knees with your hands. It is said you should keep your legs, nasb as-saqain is the term, the Arabic term, to keep your legs straight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you keep your legs straight, as in a long straight, but means you keep your shins upright, and maybe then you have to bend the part above the knee, otherwise you'll fall over. If you're going to bend your back vertical at 90 degrees and you're going to keep your legs straight and you're going to keep them vertical like this, you're more likely falling over unless you've got really big feet. So, there is like a physical impossibility here. So some people say that no, keeping the legs straight means that the legs up to the knee should be vertical, and then above the knee maybe you'll have to have a little bit of a bend on it to counterbalance, the upper part of your body. But nevertheless, it should be a posture which is fitting the occasion, really. I think that's the important thing. And this horizontal thing is really amazing because it is a connection between that and between what you say in that posture. Because you say, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. Allah is the great. Allah is the great. Allah is unlimited. It's like a horizontal idea, You're standing in the ruku', which is the horizontal position. At the same time, you are acknowledging Allah's greatness, Allah's horizontal, if you wish, limitlessness. That Allah is vast, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, glory be to Allah, the vast, if you wish, And then when you go in the sujood, because this is the horizontal thing, when you go in the sujood, although for practical reasons we cannot stand on our heads vertically. If we could, maybe that should be what we were doing, but we can't. But that is lowering ourselves as much as possible, of course, but also a vertical thing. And then we say, Subhana Rabbi al-A'la, the meaning glory to Allah Most High. So the unlimited vertically. So Allah is the horizontally unlimited and the vertically unlimited, if you wish. The ruku' is a horizontal, also sharing with all the animals, most of the animals who are horizontal in their posture when they praise Allah. And then we're doing the sujood, sharing with the vertical, and lowering our head. Put the thing which we have really, our most precious aspect, our mind, or the representation of our mind, which is our forehead, we put on the ground as low as we possibly can in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is most high. And that is when we are the nearest we can be to Allah. The nearest that the servant is to his master is in the posture of sujood, when you're putting your forehead on the ground in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we have the ruku', and then standing up after the ruku' is another important part of the prayer. If you do not stand up properly after your ruku', you have not really completed the outer aspect of the prayer. You know, after, this is how nice, every posture of the prayer, you have to rest. You know, when you bow, you have to rest in the bowing position before you can get back up again. When you get back up again after the bowing, you have to rest in the upright position before you can prostrate. When you prostrate, you have to rest in the prostrating position before you can sit up. When you sit up between the two prostrations, you have to rest in the sitting position. They call it jalsa. Before you can kneel down in the second prostration. So in every part of the prayer, you have to become silent. You have to become still. You have to become quiet, rest. So I like the idea of taking a breath in each position. So when you sit up between the two sajdas, at the very least, you may recite something or you may not recite anything between the two sajdas, but at the very least, take a breath. You know. And then go in the second one. The same thing when you stand up after ruku. Sami Allahu liman hamida, Rabbana lakal hamd. Make sure that you stop. And then you go into the sujood. There is even a discourse on where you keep your gaze while you are in the prayer. Again, it is also part of the outer part of the prayer, or the form of the prayer. So there may be different opinions on this, I don't know, but as I've heard, what I've learned is that when you are standing and in the position where you recite, you will be looking at the point where you are going to put your forehead in the sujood. That should be the focus of your gaze, ideally. Not in front, not around, of course, we know that. But just there, on the point of sujood. Not right down here either on your hands, but on the point of sujood. That's where you keep your gaze as much as you possibly can during prayer. It is better to keep your eyes open, unless for concentration you will need to close your eyes. It is permissible to close your eyes in the salat if it aids your concentration. But otherwise the preferred practice is to keep them open. And then when you bow in the ruku', it is recommended that you keep your gaze on the back of your feet. You know, not on the toes, but on the back of your feet, on the feet basically, on the top of your feet. And then in the sujood, in as much as you keep your gaze anywhere, you should basically be gazing down like on your nose, if you wish, on the tip of your nose, sort of, you know, in the sujood. You will not really see anything much in sujood, will you, anyway? And when you sit in the sitting position at the end of the prayer, then you keep your gaze at your hands. You're looking at your hands. This is what I've learned on where you keep your gaze in the prayer. So even that is a part of the sort of outer form of the prayer. And then in the sitting position as well, there's different opinions now how you sit in the first sitting how you sit between the sujood, how you sit in the first sitting, how you sit in the second sitting, how you sit if you're a man, how you sit if you're a woman. Again, there are many different opinions. I think it is all established, it's all from the practice of the Prophet, and it is all the hikmah, that all the various ways of the Prophet, peace be upon him, during the prayer should be kept alive for the remainder of history. And so, by Allah's decree, these different ways or these different schools have developed, so they will all be kept alive and in practice. And you mentioned, Sister Yakuta, you mentioned about the toes. I have to confess, I don't know why you are supposed to keep your toes in a certain way. I know that. I struggle with it very much myself. But ideally, during the sujood, and this is according to some even a requirement, that your feet, again, some difference between men and women here. So I will not enter into that area really at all. Whatever you've learned is probably fine. But at least for men, I have learned that your feet should be upright and your toes should be pointing as much as possible towards Qibla, meaning that if your feet are on the ground, your toes are sort of, resting firmly on the ground, so that you are touching the ground with the underside of your foot, of your toes. It will be usually. Then it will not be. Depending on how flexible you are now. But if you keep your feet in the air during the whole of the sujood, then, according to what I have learned, then your prayer is not correct, because your feet have to touch the ground during the sujood. So if you have the habit of leaving them waving in the air, you try to leave that habit. And again, this may be a difference between madhahib. This may be specific for males, for men rather than for women. You should not keep the top of your foot on the ground in sujood, like the feet sort of dragging. But you should keep, as I said, the bottom of your foot touching the ground. Even so much that if you pray with your shoes on, which is perfectly permissible, provided they are clean and not made from a material like pig skin or something, or something, there is only that, which is problematic, then the soles of the shoes should be so flexible that, again, your feet will actually, it could be deemed to touch the ground. If you have steel toe caps and great big boots, then your feet are just dingling in the air above there. Then maybe according to that view, it will not be correct. But again, I'm sure there are differences of opinion here, and I'm sure there are realities and real situations and what is possible and what is not possible. But you should know that it is not impermissible to pray with your shoes. Usually it is obviously against the adab of the masjid to walk in with your shoes. But for example, if you're praying outside or somewhere, and if the shoes are suitable, then there's nothing wrong in praying in your shoes. And then when you sit, there is also a particular way of keeping your feet. With your left foot spread out under you, sort of, what would you call it, perpendicular to the Qibla, like at the right angles. And again, ideally what they say, even to this extent, with your toes as much as possible bent so they point forward, even though you have the foot sort of spread out. And with your right foot standing up, vertically, as vertical as possible, and with your toes again, firmly on the ground, as much as possible facing the Qibla, or pointing towards the Qibla. And now it's not easy. If you learn from a childhood, maybe it's easy. I've seen some beautiful postures from people you would not really think of that as a particularly, religious person. But when you see that person in the sitting, you think, wow, he's got it right. Wow, that's a qada, that's a sitting. It is just so beautiful when it is right. You can see it. Yes, that is how it's meant to be. You can just tell, And then, of course, the other way of sitting is the tawarruk, where you sit and you sort of have your both feet sticking out a little bit to the right-hand side. That's something I am not able to perform that. I've tried and I'm not successful. And luckily we don't have it, at least not for men, in the Hanafi madhab. So I've sort of, which is good for me, because that would be, I will topple over basically if I do it. I don't really understand even, because he said the Prophet, peace be upon him, he used to sit the other way until he became a little bit heavier and slightly less mobile, and then he would sit in this way with the feet sticking out of the side. And I still have a struggle understanding how that would be any easier. To me it is not easier, but obviously there must have been, the Prophet, peace be upon him, must have felt it easier to sit that way. So Allah knows best. Anyway. And then of course the salam, to end the prayer with salam. Again, there is a difference. You end salam both sides or just to the right. The Malikis, they like it short and sweet. They're just the simplest madhab, just tick, 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 tick. No frills. It's the no frills madhab. It's the Maliki madhab. Just salam alaikum.
Say 3 salams if you pray in congregation.
So you compensate then. Because otherwise it's just salam alaikum. You wait, what happened there?
Say one extra to the imam.
No, well, I mean for the imam. If you pray behind the Maliki imam, you get a bit, sometimes it can be really short. No, I love it. It's really lovely. They all have their beauty. And it's something I found quite recently. I found a sort of, I've been wondering about it for a long time, but I was looking into a book of fiqh on the 5 madhabs. Maybe there are more than 5 madhabs. There were several hundreds of madhabs really, but 5 mainly have survived. The 4 Sunni madhabs and the Jafari madhab, but I'm sure there are others that are still also practiced. The Ibadis also have their madhab, at least one. I don't know if there are many. The Ismailis have a practice, and I'm sure there may be more than one madhab among the Isna Asharis as well. I don't know. It's just conceived as one, but I'm sure there should be more than one.
Amongst the 12
Yeah.
there is no other offshoots, so to speak. The Ismailis, they have their own thing. So,
but the 12 is just one madhab, you mean? They're all Jafari, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm sure there will be ideas of different ideas and
there
flexibility within.
Therefore, you have this different marja.
Yeah.
Some follow Sistani, some follow somebody else.
And this is beautiful, I think, the many minutes. But I was reading a book about the 5 madhabs. I'm just a little bit at the 5 madhabs. It sounds a bit sort of limited. But anyway, the book of fiqh, according to the 4 madhabs, is a very famous book written in Al-Azhar about the differences between the 4 madhabs. And really what you get when you read it is how similar they are, really, around how different they are. But they have their own peculiarities. And then I read this book of fiqh about the 5 madhabs. And what struck me more than anything else was that they were generally, as a general case, you can say that there were bigger differences between the 4 madhabs than between the 4 madhabs on the one side and the Jafari madhabs on the other side. So it is a myth that they should be particularly different. Yes, there are differences, but not any more than there are differences between the various 4 madhabs. And some you will find, from these 5 madhabs, you will find in various rulings all possible constellations. All 5 have the same ruling. 4 have one and 1 have the other, and it could be any of the 5 that is that one, or 2 on the one side and 3 on the other, etc. You could find all different constellations, which I found that to me was, I found that very encouraging. I found that to me that was a very positive experience to see that. I knew what the difference is, but I think I was under the misconception that there is a big difference between the Jafari madhabs and then the 4 Sunni madhabs, but this is not the case. So anyway, the form of the prayer, I think, with the different ways of practice, with the different madhabs, it is easy for us, and it would be my advice to any of you, any of my friends, is if you are serious about your Islam, if you are in the state of your life when you're able to devote some time to it, is to learn a madhab of your choice and practice it. It is so much easier. But only if you are in that position. If you're not even in that position, you do not really have the time to devote. At the moment you will want to practice Islam, but you cannot have the time to sort of spend so much time with it, then just don't worry about this thing about madhab. If it complicates things for you, then drop it. Just do whatever they do, and just pray whatever way you pray, and just ask whatever imam is of your mosque or whoever you trust. If you are if you are unsure about any ruling, and just follow it, and it will be accepted by Allah, without a shadow of a doubt. But if you are able to learn the deen, then to learn it according to its particular madhab, any particular madhab, is so much easier than trying to sort of make a hodgepodge, or trying to devise yourself from reading the verses of the Quran and reading the sayings of the Prophet, because there's so many variations, there's so much, and you are in danger of becoming confused. If that is your path, if that's what you feel is right for you, that's fine as well. There is the 5 madhabs or the Ahlul Hadith or whatever way of practicing, they are all, within mainstream Islam, and they are all perfectly acceptable. It is not a question of what it is acceptable in the eyes of Allah. It is a question of what is suitable for you and what makes it easy for you. So I said that don't be too worried about this thing. Don't be too extreme about either the madhabs, for or against, or a particular madhab. But as a way of learning, as a way of practicing, it sure makes life easier. And if you feel strongly in your heart, I don't know, this is I'm so attractive to this madhab, rather than the one I was born with, then fine, you change. It's not a big deal, And sometimes it's practicalities, You can marry into another madhab, and there will be more smoother life together if you follow the same madhab. So you do it, On the other hand, you might do it and you find, it doesn't make any difference to us. I want to follow this other madhab. Or you go to study somewhere and you find the opportunity to learn this other madhab is so much greater, then do it. So whatever reasons for choosing, keeping, changing a madhab, it's all acceptable. It is not. But the only thing which is not acceptable is to call to a madhab specifically as opposed to other madhabs. That you're trying to bring people in to become Hanafis from being something else. That is not permitted. The call is only to Islam. So to try to sort of, discourage people from following a certain madhab, or, you have to change to this one, or you have to follow that or this, that is not acceptable. Otherwise, it's a big scope. That was what came to me regarding the outer aspects of the prayer. I think we'll have a sort of 22-minute break now. And then, inshallah, Sister Yakuta will commence her talk at 7:15, or a workshop, it says here, whatever. You're the owner of the next session anyway. So let's have a little break and get some refreshment, inshallah. Jazakumullah. So now again, with the same pairs or new pairs, just have a little go at this mirroring again. During tonight, during tomorrow, get a little sort of, just if it feels natural, if it feels uncomfortable, drop it. Yeah. If it feels comfortable, if you're curious, then it's a little bit just of a thing that getting this realization of my hands in the sujood, my back in the ruku, etc., my arms, elbows, whatever, the whole thing of the outer aspect. Thank you.